Wesley Parker stood quietly in the dim back hallway of a restaurant that bore his father's name. The 19th location in what had once been a family dream now felt like a stranger's house. He pulled at the sleeves of his worn-out thrift store hoodie, its frayed cuffs brushing against calloused fingers. His beard had grown wild, his once sharp haircut hidden beneath a faded baseball cap. The glasses that shielded his eyes were thick and utilitarian, almost as if he didn't want to be seen. He didn't resemble the polished CEO once splashed across Forbes magazine. That man had disappeared somewhere between boardrooms and bottom lines. He had taken over the company 3 years ago, inheriting not just a business but a legacy. But expansion, as it turned out, was both a blessing and a curse. The more they grew, the more he vanished into spreadsheets, lost in metrics and investor calls. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped recognizing the very heartbeat of the brand, its people, and worse, they had stopped recognizing him. Lately, something had been gnawing at him, subtle but persistent. Customer reviews at this location had taken a sharp turn. The feedback was murky, as if filtered through layers of sugar-coated reports. Employee turnover here was abnormally high. When he asked questions, his director of operations brushed it off with a smile, blaming seasonal hiring gaps. But Wesley knew when someone was painting over cracks. He wasn't about to ignore it. This time, he didn't arrive with a clipboard or a title. He came as a stranger, one of the crowd. His plan was simple: blend in, observe, and feel the truth for himself. No entourage, no executive badge, just a customer in a hoodie with questions no one could see. The shopping plaza was buzzing. It was peak lunch hour, and the parking lot was gridlocked with hurried footsteps and car doors slamming. As Wesley approached the restaurant, he passed 2 employees outside arguing, not in whispers, but loud, careless tones. "It's your turn to refill the soda machine." Says who? Neither noticed Wesley. Inside, the scent of sizzling chicken, fryer oil, and warm bread thickened the air. The line curled toward the door. Wesley took his place at the very back, watching, listening. There was an urgency in the room, but not the kind that comes from ambition. It was exhaustion dressed up as routine. At the register stood a young woman moving with a quiet grace. Her name tag read, Zadeie Vance. She had a calm presence, each motion intentional, patient. When a customer raised their voice over a perceived weight error, she didn't flinch. She nodded, apologized, and made it right. It wasn't robotic, it was human. Real. A woman ahead of Wesley whispered to her, "Thanks for being so calm." "Just doing my best," Zadeie replied, brushing a braid behind her ear with a tired smile. But that moment of decency shattered quickly. A man in a blazer, Bluetooth in one ear, strode straight past the line. No nod, no glance, just entitlement. He parked himself directly in front of Wesley. "Excuse me," Wesley said, gesturing politely to the long line behind him. "There's a line." The man barely looked at him. "I'm picking up for Mr. Daniels. Still gotta wait like everyone else." Before Wesley could say more, a voice barked from behind the counter. Hey, let that guy through," called out a manager. He wore his authority like armor, early 40s, tired eyes. A badge clipped onto a wrinkled polo. He looked Wesley over like he was background noise. "He's picking up for someone important," he said. Wesley's blood chilled. "What was that?" he asked, his voice steady, a step forward. The manager didn't blink. "This pickup's for someone high up. You can wait, buddy. This is for important people." There it was. Wesley stood there, stunned, not just at the dismissal, but at what it revealed. No apology, no curiosity, no awareness of who he was or what that moment truly meant. Behind him, a customer muttered under their breath, "Wow. Guess we're all just nobodies." Zadeie looked up, clearly uneasy. Rick, handle your line, Zadeie," the manager snapped. Wesley said nothing. He didn't need to. Not yet. He stayed in line, heart pounding, not with ego, but sorrow. This wasn't about one rude interaction. It was a symptom of something deeper, something broken. Over the next 20 minutes, he watched Rick let two more people cut, one wearing a golf polo, another a delivery driver. Each time, it was like watching a quiet injustice no one dared to challenge. Meanwhile, Zadeie kept working. Her energy didn't fade. She apologized when food was late. She knelt to hand a cookie to a crying toddler. She noticed when a man in a wheelchair dropped his tray and was the only one to help. Wesley finally reached the front. "Thanks for waiting," she said with a smile that didn't feel forced. "What can I get started for you?" "A grilled chicken bowl," he replied, voice low. She rang it up quickly, then leaned slightly closer. "Sorry about earlier," she whispered. "That's not how it's supposed to be." Wesley nodded, swallowing something hard in his throat. "Are you always this kind to people?" Zadeie blinked. "I mean, yeah. Isn't that kind of the point?" He stepped to the side to wait for his order, but he didn't stop watching. Across the room, a teenage employee fumbled a bag of fries. It hit the floor. Rick's voice cut across the air like a whip. "That's coming out of your paycheck, genius!" The boy's face flushed red. No one stepped in. No one dared. But Wesley was already planning his next move, because this time, someone was watching. The teenager stood frozen, shoulders hunched as if trying to shrink from the world. Wesley clenched his jaw, a slow burn rising in his chest. Not anger, shame. Shame for what his company had become in the quiet corners where no one thought anyone was watching. He remembered the promises he made in the beginning, that every store would be a place of dignity, respect, and community. But here he was, just another face in a crowd being told he wasn't important enough to matter, and worse, watching others be stripped of that same respect. Zadeie returned with his tray, handing it over with a gentleness that made the weight in his chest tighten further. "Hope it's good." "Let me know if anything's wrong," she said, her voice kind, steady. He nodded, lips pressed tight, and took the tray to a small table by the window. He barely touched the food. Instead, he watched. He typed furiously on his phone, noting every moment that told him more than a report ever could. Rick vanished into the back more than once, returning each time more agitated, muttering to himself like the job was a burden he couldn't shake. Wesley stayed for over an hour, blending into the background like a shadow. Then, as the pace slowed and the dining room emptied, he left, but not far. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel as thoughts stormed in his mind. For the first time in years, the veil of leadership, of being above the floor, felt like a cage. Tomorrow, things would change. Tomorrow, he wouldn't return as a customer. He'd come back wearing an apron. The next morning, Wesley found himself in the cramped locker room of the same store, pulling the strings of a brand new apron tight around his waist. The district HR partner had quietly arranged a fake file under the name Cal. The general manager barely looked at it, didn't even ask a single question. That, in itself, told Wesley something. He stepped onto the floor just after opening. The hum of early prep filled the air, timers beeping, sinks running, drawers opening. There was a rhythm to it, one he hadn't heard in years, a rhythm that used to be familiar. Zadeie was already there, moving quickly at the register. She was reviewing the POS system with laser focus, her brows furrowed in concentration. She glanced up when she saw him. "You the new guy?" she asked, pushing a button without looking away. "Yeah," Wesley said. "Cal?" She nodded once. "I'm Zadeie. Ever run the register?" "Not in a while." "You'll pick it up fast if you're paying attention," she replied, pointing to the touch screen. "Just don't guess. People get mad quick when their orders come out wrong." Wesley watched her fingers glide across the screen with practiced ease. She didn't explain more than necessary, just what mattered. She had that kind of grounded authority that comes from consistency. She wasn't loud. She didn't need to be. He shadowed her closely that first hour, handling drink orders and restocking napkins, staying quiet, absorbing everything. It was a strangely humbling experience, being at the bottom of the chain he had once built from scratch. Then a middle-aged woman approached and ordered a grilled shrimp salad. Wesley handed her the tray with a polite smile, but as soon as she saw it, she frowned. "This is cold," she said. He opened his mouth to respond, but Zadeie was already moving. "Let me get that fixed," she said calmly, taking the plate and turning to the kitchen. "Can I get a fresh shrimp plate, please?" she called out. From the back, a lazy voice fired back. "Tell her to microwave it." Wesley turned toward the kitchen. A man with a stained apron leaned against the prep counter, unmoved. He looked directly at Zadeie. "She's lucky we still got shrimp. We're short already." Zadeie didn't miss a beat. "We're not microwaving seafood." The man rolled his eyes and slowly returned to slicing onions, each motion exaggerated like he wanted her to know he didn't care. A young employee nearby, earbuds in, didn't even glance up. Wesley leaned closer. "Who's that?" "Kitchen lead," she said under her breath. "Stan. Been here too long to care. By the time the plate was ready, the customer had already left, muttering on her way out." Zadeie let out a quiet sigh and dropped the untouched tray into the bus bin. Then, without a word, she returned to the register. Later that morning, Rick emerged from the back, scanning the room like a general surveying his troops. He didn't acknowledge Wesley until he spotted him restocking the drink station. "You're the transfer, right?" he asked, arms folded tight. "Yeah," Wesley replied evenly. Rick's eyes swept over him once, calculating. Then, for the first time, his gaze shifted to Zadeie. There was tension in the air now, a flicker of power, of posturing. But Wesley didn't flinch, because now he wasn't just watching, he was in it, and this time he wasn't going anywhere. "You training him?" Rick's voice sliced through the air, sharp and uninvited. "Just showing him the system," Zadeie replied, her tone flat but controlled. Rick nodded once, but it wasn't approval. It was a warning dressed as indifference. "Don't slow her down. We've got a district manager dropping in this week. I don't need more problems." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned and disappeared again, like accountability was optional. Wesley kept his head down, hands busy, heart simmering. He wasn't here for confrontation. Not yet. By noon, the shift turned chaotic. The lunch rush hit like a tidal wave, customers pouring through the doors until the line twisted all the way past the entryway. The dining area buzzed with tension and noise. Zadeie was at the register again, calm in the storm, and Wesley worked beside her, bagging orders with mechanical focus. When a customer shouted about missing avocado, Wesley stepped up, offering to fix it. But the man didn't want a solution. He just wanted someone to unload on. Rick was gone. Stan had vanished from the kitchen. The rest of the crew looked barely old enough to drive, moving with the disjointed panic of a ship taking on water. No one steering, no one leading. By 1:30, the store looked like it was giving up. Tables sat covered in wrappers and crumbs. Trash bins overflowed. The soda machine ran out of ice. Wesley grabbed a mop instinctively, trying to prevent a slip hazard near the drink station. Then came the voice. "Why are you out here?" "Who told you to do that?" Wesley turned to see Rick standing near the walk-in cooler, arms crossed, brow furrowed. "The floor's filthy," Wesley said simply. "You're not paid to mop," Rick barked. "Get back to bagging." "I thought we were short today," Wesley replied, not backing down but keeping his tone calm. Rick stepped closer, the space between them tightening. "I don't care what you thought." "You're not a manager." Wesley didn't answer. He returned to the counter, jaw tight, blood boiling under the surface. Zadeie caught his eye as he stepped back into place. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. They both knew what this place had become. After the rush, she pulled him aside near the supply hallway, speaking low. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You don't have to let him talk to you like that." Wesley gave a slight nod, eyes on the floor. "How long's he been running this place?" "Too long." "You ever think about leaving?" She didn't answer right away. When she finally did, it was a whisper. Every week. Wesley studied her expression. It wasn't anger. It was fatigue. Like she'd used up all her fight, and now she was just surviving. Later that afternoon, Wesley was assigned to shadow Jordan, a 17-year-old with wide eyes and twitchy hands. First job. Eager, nervous. Jordan was tasked with restocking the line and prepping ingredients, but every time Wesley leaned in to help, Jordan pulled back like he was bracing for criticism. "You good?" Wesley asked gently. Jordan shrugged. "Stan says I mess things up when I go too fast." "How often does he say that?" Jordan glanced toward the kitchen, voice barely audible. "Every day." Before Wesley could respond, Stan reappeared, his apron stained, hands covered in sauce. "Why are you two standing around?" he barked. "We're refilling the prep bins," Jordan stammered. "Then do it. Don't talk." Wesley stepped forward, something inside him snapping. "What's the issue?" Stan narrowed his eyes. "What's your name again?" "Cal," Stan scoffed. "Well, Cal, keep your head down. Don't make things harder than they already are." Wesley's fists clenched slightly, but his voice remained level. "He's doing fine." Stan shook his head and walked off, muttering under his breath. By 4:15, Wesley finally took his first break. He sat outside on the concrete loading dock, sipping from a paper cup. The air smelled like grease in late summer. Zadeie joined him, sliding down the wall beside him with a quiet thud. "You're not really from another location, are you?" Wesley looked at her, eyes steady. "Why do you say that?" She gave a tired shrug. "You ask too many questions. And you listen." He didn't deny it. She pulled her knees to her chest, staring straight ahead. "This place used to be decent, before Rick got promoted, before corporate stopped caring. Now it's just survived the day." Wesley looked out at the parking lot, a sea of cars and strangers. "What keeps you here?" "My mom's sick." "Insurance helps. Not much, but enough." The words hit him like a stone, quiet, unapologetic, heavy with truth. Before he could speak, the back door slammed open. "Rick." "Clock back in. We're short again. Jordan left early." Zadeie stood without complaint. Wesley followed her back inside. Chaos had returned. A spilled drink near the front had gone ignored. A kid running to the bathroom slipped and fell hard. His mother was livid. Rick didn't apologize. He blamed the kid. Wesley rushed over, helped the mother up, handed her napkins. But it was too late. The damage was done. She stormed out, swearing never to return. Rick didn't care, not even a flicker of concern. At 5:30, while bagging another order, Wesley saw him. A man in a suit, phone in hand, walking past the entire line and tapping on the glass. Rick emerged from the back. "Hey, I got you." "Number." "Not again." Wesley froze, his fists curled. His breath caught. Zadeie looked over, her jaw tightened, and before he could stop himself, Wesley stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why is he skipping the line?" Rick turned, annoyed. "Because he's a vendor. He's not just some random. He's not more important than the 10 people waiting." The vendor looked around, clearly uncomfortable. "It's fine. I can wait." Rick waved him forward. No, come up." I said. Wesley didn't move. "He can wait," he said again. Rick stepped toward him. "You don't give orders here." Wesley calmly pulled off his apron and placed it on the counter. "No," he said. "But I do own the company." The room fell into stunned silence. Rick's jaw slackened, but no words came out. Customers stared. Staff froze. Zadeie stepped back, eyes wide. Wesley turned slowly, voice clear and steady. "I've been here all day. I've watched how you speak to people, how you let others do the hard work while you hide in the back. That ends today." Rick stammered. I didn't know." "That's the problem," Wesley cut in. He turned to the nearest cashier. "Clock him out." The cashier hesitated, then obeyed. Rick didn't argue. He just stood there, silent, defeated. Wesley turned to Zadeie. "Can you hold it down for 20 more minutes while I make a few calls?" She nodded slowly. "Good," Wesley said, stepping into the back office. "Because this place is about to change." The door clicked shut, behind him. The office was small and cluttered. A dusty printer, a stack of old invoices, a forgotten protein bar. Wesley didn't sit. He pulled out his phone and dialed. The change was just beginning. "I need a temporary GM transferred here today," Wesley said, pacing the narrow back office with determination in every word. "And I want a regional lead on site within the hour. Someone I trust. Not someone who's been signing off reports without stepping foot in the store." As soon as the call ended, he didn't hesitate. He logged into the internal system, pulled up Rick's employee profile, and initiated immediate termination. No final warning. No second chances. Not this time. This wasn't about a grudge. It was about standards, ones the company had always claimed to uphold. No one who repeatedly humiliated employees, who played favorites while turning their back on team accountability, would stay under his watch. By the time Wesley returned to the floor, the staff hadn't slowed. If anything, they had tightened up. Zadeie was still at the register, working through the line with practiced calm, while Alina, he remembered her now, was wiping down tables quickly but with care. There wasn't celebration. No high fives, just quiet, focused effort, like they were still waiting for someone to pull the rug out from under them. Wesley stepped behind the counter and gently tapped Zadeie on the shoulder. "You're off the floor for now." "I can stay," she replied instinctively, eyes still darting toward the customers. "You've done more than enough," he said, handing her a bottle of water and gesturing toward the break room. She paused, then walked away. Not because she wanted rest, but because she was used to not being offered any. Alina glanced up, almost whispering, "Is he really gone?" Wesley nodded. "Yes, permanently." She didn't say anything. Just turned back to her work, wiping faster now. Like maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning. Wesley jumped onto the register. It had been years since he'd touched one, but the interface came back quickly, like muscle memory built from hundreds of long shifts. A few customers recognized him from old magazine articles. They whispered to each other but said nothing aloud. He didn't need the spotlight. He needed the team to feel stability returning. 30 minutes later, a woman in a navy blazer stepped through the door, clipboard in hand, confidence in her stride. She scanned the room, saw Wesley, and approached. "Mr. Parker," she said quietly. "I'm Dinah, the interim GM from North Loop. I finished briefing my team and came straight here. Thanks for moving fast," he said, relieved. "I've already pulled the last 3 weeks of labor reports and incident logs. There are gaps, big ones. Start fixing what you can today," he told her. "We'll go over the rest after the dinner rush." She nodded and headed for the back, no further. Instructions needed. He trusted her judgment. Dana had turned around a failing store last year without exhausting her staff or making empty promises. She was the kind of leader who walked the talk. By 6 p.m., the first signs of ease were beginning to show. Zadeie had quietly returned to the floor, not to command, but to support. She was restocking utensils and gently guiding a trainee who looked barely 16. She didn't ask to be in charge. She simply filled the vacuum left behind by poor leadership. Wesley stood beside her at the sauce station. "When's the last time you were recognized for what you do here?" he asked. She paused, adjusting a row of lids. "Couple months ago. One customer filled out a comment card. Don't think management ever saw it." Wesley looked at her carefully. "That changes now." She turned slightly, confused. "You're being promoted. Effective immediately. Assistant manager. You'll get full training, a raise, and a manager on site who listens." She didn't react with joy or disbelief. She simply stood still, her eyes fixed on the countertop, as if waiting for the catch. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he replied. But I'd like you to stay. She nodded slowly. If things really change, I will. He turned toward the rest of the crew. Jordan was back at the prep line. Stan was gone. Wesley had already pulled his access codes and informed HR Stan's repeated verbal abuse violated every standard the company stood for. Termination paperwork would be processed before closing. In the kitchen, Dinah was deep into reviewing logs. She gestured toward a clipboard. These haven't been updated in over a week. Some of this inventory isn't safe. Toss what can't be verified. Start fresh, Wesley said without hesitation. Dana gave a half smile. There's a good crew here. Underneath the mess, they've just been in survival mode. I know, he said. And he meant it. Stepping back onto the floor, Wesley called for a short team huddle near the drink station. The employees gathered slowly. Zadeie, Jordan, Alina, and 3 others he hadn't spoken to yet. There was hesitation in their steps, like people expecting more of the same. I want to thank you, Wesley began. Not because you did anything flashy, but because you stayed professional even when you weren't treated that way. Jordan folded his arms tightly. Alina leaned against the wall. No one interrupted. I saw things today that were unacceptable. They've already been addressed. Effective immediately, there will be no more favoritism, no more yelling, no more disappearing managers. He let the silence hang for a beat. If you're here to do the work, you'll be treated with respect. He looked each of them in the eyes, not rushing, not bluffing. I'm not here to patch this place up for a day. We're restructuring this store from the foundation up. Better training, clearer roles, real accountability. You'll have a new GM by next week. Until then, Dana's in charge beside him. Zadeie stood a little taller. You'll also have a voice. Every one of you will get a one-on-one with me or Dana this week. You will be heard. Jordan raised a hand, hesitant. Are we still expected to cover open shifts if we're short again? Wesley shook his head. No, that stops now. If we're short, we reduce workload. We don't dump more on you, and if you're asked to stay past your shift without prior notice, you'll get time and a half plus a meal voucher. Jordan exhaled, relief crossing his face for the first time all day. Wesley continued, voice firm but steady. If you feel unsafe or disrespected, report it immediately. No one here is allowed to intimidate or coast while others carry the weight. He paused. You've earned better. And, starting now, better is what you'll get. Now you'll get it. The team didn't respond with applause or cheers. They simply drifted back to their stations, quietly, cautiously. Trust, Wesley knew, didn't rebuild in a single speech. It was earned in the unseen hours after. He stayed after closing, washing dishes in the back with Jordan, packing bags for the walk-in. The boy didn't say much, but his shoulders no longer seemed braced for impact. There was a little more ease in his movements. That was enough, for now. When the last transaction cleared, Zadeie handed Wesley the final drawer tally. Everything matches. No over, no short. Good, Wesley replied, folding the slip neatly. You're logging tomorrow's schedule. I can do it. Use the system to flag open shifts. If you're short, I'll send backup from nearby stores. She nodded, but hesitated before speaking again. I didn't think you'd come back today. Not after yesterday. I wasn't planning to, Wesley admitted. But then I watched a kid get humiliated in front of a crowd, and no one stepped in. That's not who we're supposed to be. Zadeie folded her arms across her chest. Her voice was flat, honest. You think the other stores are like this one? Some are, he said quietly. Not all, but I'm not guessing anymore. He met her gaze. I'll be visiting everyone. She nodded once, not as a thank you, but as recognition that something real had begun. Outside, the restaurant windows still bore the smudges of a long day. A single receipt fluttered in the wind near the trash bin. The place wasn't clean yet, not entirely, but it had begun to heal. Fixing culture was never quick, but it had started. And this time, Wesley wasn't delegating the hard parts. Over the next 3 weeks, he barely touched his corporate office. Instead, He restructured reporting systems, stripping out the middle layers that had quietly muffled staff concerns. From now on, every GM would report directly to a regional lead, with mandatory bi-weekly video calls with Wesley himself. No more hiding behind vague summaries or sanitized reports. Store 19, the one he had walked into anonymously, remained his focus. He visited 3 times a week, never wearing a suit. Always in the same navy polo and worn jeans. Not to be applauded, to be accountable. Dana, the interim GM, moved quickly. She wasn't a big speech giver. She corrected in real time, walked the line, and earned trust with consistency, not charisma. She noticed what others ignored. A cashier who fumbled under pressure was reassigned to prep and flourished. Another team member, once labeled unreliable, improved overnight once given a fixed, stable schedule. Fairness worked fast when people saw it wasn't a trick. Wesley brought in an external team for a full-day audit in week 2, not to catch people slipping, but to give them a voice. Anonymous surveys were handed out. Staff were asked, "How are you treated? Who do you trust? Who do you fear?" The answers came fast. Stan's name showed up again and again, but so did another, quieter name. A former assistant manager who had quietly resigned 6 months prior. The truth? The rot hadn't started with Rick. It had simply gone unaddressed long enough to metastasize. That Friday, Wesley sat with Zadeie in the break room. She was off the clock, eating a chicken wrap and broccoli, her uniform crisp, her notes tidy, her demeanor calm despite the long shift. "There's something I wasn't sure I should say," she began, setting her fork aside. "You've earned the right to say anything," Wesley replied. "There's still a hole in the evening shift," she said. "Some of the new hires are trying, but they're overwhelmed. We've had people walk out mid-shift. They come in, see how fast things move, and just leave. Do you have enough coverage to rotate breaks?" "Barely. One more no-show, and we're at the safety line." Wesley pulled out his phone. "When are your next interviews?" "Monday morning. 4 scheduled. Move them up 2 days. I'll cover the hours. You shouldn't be managing traffic and training at the same time." She nodded, then added, "Jordan's been coming in an hour early. Unpaid." Says he doesn't want to get behind. Wesley stood immediately and walked to the front where Jordan was wiping the sneeze guard. "Jordan." "Yes, sir." "You clock in the moment you walk in. No exceptions. I was just trying to help." "You are helping, and you'll be paid for all of it." Jordan's eyes widened. Then he nodded quietly. Later that night, Wesley watched something shift. Zadeie wasn't just working, she was teaching. She walked a new hire through lettuce rotation, not because it was urgent, but because it mattered. Small steps toward stability. At closing, Wesley pulled Dana aside. "How long can you stay here?" "I need to return to North Loop in 2 weeks, she said. "But I've got someone in mind for the permanent GM spot, internal." "No. Someone I mentored last year, strong on operations, no tolerance for nonsense. But she's a builder. Make the offer tomorrow," Wesley said. "If she accepts, have her shadow you by next Thursday." That night closing wasn't flawless. The sauce pump jammed, someone forgot to label soup. But it was honest work, no tension, no fear. That mattered more than perfection. The following week, Angela arrived. Late 30s, warehouse background, 2 years managing a high-volume franchise. Sharp, no frills. She didn't smile much, but she asked smart questions and remembered everyone's name on day 1. By the end of her second shift, she'd rewritten the closing checklist and flagged 3 pieces of outdated equipment. She didn't ask permission. She handed Wesley a list and a quote. "If you want this store to reflect your values, you can't expect people to use broken tools." He approved it on the spot. A week later, Wesley returned with a small camera crew. Not for marketing, for truth. He stood in the dining room, the open kitchen behind him, and addressed the lens. "I went undercover because I stopped trusting reports. What I found were hard truths, painful moments, and a team that deserved better. This isn't just one store's story. It's a message to every leader in this company. You don't lead with titles. You lead by showing up. The video would play in every onboarding, at every leadership summit. Before leaving that night, Wesley pulled Zadeie aside near the back hallway. "I've been watching you lead this floor the last few weeks," he said. "You've got the presence, the clarity, and the trust of your team." She stayed quiet, unsure where he was going. "I want you in a new program. We're building a mentorship track for future regional leaders. You'll train with a senior operator over the next 6 months." She blinked. "You think I can do that? You're already doing it." She paused, then smiled. "Only if I still get to train the new ones." "You will." Wesley stepped out just before midnight. The sidewalk was empty. The restaurant lights dimmed behind him. There was no celebration, no grand ending, just clarity. This wasn't glamorous work. It wasn't fast, but it was real. He had gone undercover to find the truth. Now he was building something that wouldn't need disguises to keep standing.